New Zealand's youth delegation to the UN Climate Change Conference want the country to be carbon zero by 2050, not that far away. What does that mean? Yeah, what does it mean? But actually, is it possible? Let's start with Marama Davison. Do you think that's possible? Carbon zero by 2050?
Well, we have to get towards there at some point, but certainly the current plan that the government is taking to Paris negotiations in December is the weakest that it could be. We actually need a strong climate plan, and this is one of the best opportunities we have to put one in place.
What do we need to do, David, to get to it by 2050? Are you confident that'll happen?
I'm not, certainly not now, and I agree with Marama. You have to have a plan that's clear, that's laid out, that has targets that you can measure. The current government target is intended to be reached 13 years at earliest after they've left office. Now, you can't hold them accountable for that, and that's the way they've designed it.
So what would we need to stop doing? What would we need to stop doing to get to carbon zero by 2050? That's my question.
Well, the first thing you need to do is put a price on emissions. You actually need to make sure that people are rewarded for making good decisions, that are rewarded for taking on low carbon technologies.
So your ETS has failed. It's a failure, isn't it? The ETS system that Labour brought in was pretty much a failure.
The ETS has been gutted by National. And so right now it is actually more of a guarantee for polluters. It needs to give a clear signal that there will be a price on carbon, and we as a country need to step up and do our bit. If New Zealand can't do it, who in the world can?
Okay, Shane, what about that? Carbon neutral by 2050.
So our emissions contribution to total emissions is quite small. So we need to put it in context, about 0.15%. Our target that we're taking to Paris is a 30% reduction in 2005 by 20. That's an ambitious target. We already have 80% renewables.
It's not really though, is it?
It is ambitious.
It's not really though, is it?
No, it's not, because the Pacific Islands, for example, are practically having to beg us so that we're not raising the degree by more than 1.5%. It's not ambitious at all. We should be at least aiming to reduce emissions by 40% by 2030, but that's on the 1990 levels. That's not ambitious at all, Stuart.
So what would people have to go, before I go to that, what would people have to give up to get to that? It sounds extraordinary.
For example, we could stop subsidising fossil fuels, for example. We could subsidise cleaner energy, better public transport, planting more forests, and definitely look at things like a climate tax that will also funnel revenue back into businesses and houses as well.
Well, what about that then? What about that, Shane? Put the stake in the sand and say, as the government, as the government of the day, we are not going to open up our seas for exploration for more natural gas, stuff like that.
If we look at an end-user energy choice, you'll notice that we shut down Huntly a few weeks ago. So that conversion from coal to gas is sort of happening. End-user energy efficiency, retrofitting hot water cylinders, insulating homes, being more efficient with the energy we use. That was part of the party's policy, though, wasn't it? Then it was a good policy because it's working.
Right.
Yeah, it's working. Those are some of the things, the stake in the sand that we can put to actually get us towards that target.
All right, I'll come back to you guys. Damien Christie.
I've got a couple of guests in the audience. Now, on this topic, youth is always important because long when Wallace and the MPs are gone, we'll still be trying to make this planet work, right? We'll, younger. So I've got two delegates from the youth delegation attending the UN Climate Change Conference later this year. Hello, welcome to the show. Now, tell me, how did you get selected to this delegation? There's 8 of you going. Do you have to believe in climate change? Is that a sort of prerequisite?
Well, you say you have to believe in climate change, and absolutely we do believe in climate change.
Okay, so because you said, we were talking before that, there's people from across the political spectrum. You're not just a bunch of, Green Party types, right?
No, it's quite a varied delegation, but everyone believes in climate change now. This whole, climate change deniers don't exist.
Cool, that's good to know. Don't listen to News Talk ZB, okay, whatever you do. So what do you actually do when you get there?
So we go into the conference. We are there as NGOs observers. We are making sure that our government are doing what they say they're going to do, but also we hope that they do more, because we need a much more ambitious climate deal if we're going to actually solve this really a problem that our generation is going to bear the brunt of.
What do you think? I mean, do you think that the government should be doing more?
The government definitely needs to be doing more. An assessment by the website Climate Tracker shows that if every country in the world has the New Zealand government's emission plan, we're heading for a 3 to 4 degrees of global warming, which is going to be disastrous for the world, disastrous for the climate, and disastrous for the people.
What difference would 3 to 4 degrees make, do you think?
The 3 and 4 degrees, when that kicks in, feedback loops start happening. So things like the Arctic ice caps start melting, the methane starts releasing, and it'll just accelerate the process of climate change further and make it worse and make this world pretty much unlivable by 20.
So you get to observe this time, which means you don't actually get to influence too much?
We get meetings with the New Zealand delegation every day, so we do get to quiz them on their policy and why they're doing certain things and what's happening in some of the backroom deals that we don't get access to.
What was your reason for getting involved?
Well, apart from being, a citizen of Earth and really worried about this issue, I'm going to have kids in maybe 3 or 4 years, and I'm really worried that my kids are actually not going to be able to grow up in a world that is sustainable and that they're going to be able to have a fair access like we have to resources.
Fantastic. Thank you both. Enjoy your trip to Paris and do some good work. Thank you. Wallace.
Fantastic. Good on you. Very good. What do you hear when you hear that, Dr. Shainaretti? I mean, you've got children. You've got children here tonight.
I have.
So when you hear that appeal for the future generation, what do you say back to them?
What it says to me is, it says that we want to be part of an integrated global package, that the 0.15% of emissions that we do, we want to contribute and do it fully, but it needs to be a global arrangement. We're a small part of that, but we want to play our role. That's what it says to me.
What about you, David? I mean, back to that. You've got a child due in about a week, I understand.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
look, Wallace, we need to play our part and we need to be leaders. We've got the opportunity in New Zealand. We have ample wind close to our main centres.
What would Labour do different?
We would support innovation.
If you're in power, next election, what would you do?
So right now, as economic development spokesperson, I'm working on policies that will support innovation, that will lead us to low carbon technologies that we can share with the world.
Name one.
Low carbon technologies like wind and solar and so on. Those kinds of things need to be implemented more widely, taken up. We had a biofuel sales obligation in the last Labor government that this government got rid of that would have encouraged recycling of waste products. There are lots of industries in New Zealand that are innovative and we need to be supporting them.
Okay,
it's an opportunity, not just
before we go, I want to talk about this climate change refugee, arguably the first person in the world. He has been denied, the ability to stay in New Zealand. He's been here since 2007. He's a father of 3. Is he an overstayer or is he a genuine refugee? Marama.
And that case must be reviewed on humanitarian grounds in particular. I was at the public meeting in Henderson on Monday night. I listened to his wife Angwa talking about the future for their children back in Kiribati. And the Tuvalu and Kiribati leaders, again, asking for New Zealand to step up and be real climate leaders. But what we're doing here is for our children, who I was given from generations before me, a proud history of New Zealand leading and doing what's right. For example, women voting. For example, standing with the Pacific against nuclear weapons and testing. And so this case, John Key's government is letting us down and grabbing away from future children the proud history that New Zealand has in leading.
All right, David. David, are they genuine refugees? Should they be treated under the United Nations as a refugee? Because you let this one person in, the whole of Tuvalu.
Yep. The court has ruled no in this place. And what this exposes is the lack of planning. We are not sitting down, as far as I know, in the government with our Pacific neighbours, with the Australians.
As sea levels rise,
this is going to happen. It's getting worse. Of course, all the time in Kiribati. We need some planning so that we as a country are prepared to take people in. My mother was in Kiribati not long ago. The conditions there are appalling. And we know that when the tide's up high, water comes into people's houses, and yet the government is sitting on its hands and not planning for how we're going to support these people in future.
But this is just one, so countries like Kiribati, Tuvalu and others who are experiencing the sea level rise, how much can we cope? Will this be our new refugee situation in 50 years' time?
Look, we are a wealthy country. I have no doubt that we could be doing an awful lot better than we are now. No doubt
All right,
whatsoever.
Shane, what about this? John Key said the guy's an overstayer. That was mean, wasn't it?
So I think international refugee law doesn't cover this situation. And I think the discussion is much more around greenhouse gas emissions, global warming, and then sea rising, the rising in sea levels. And I think if we consider that, a 2-metre rise in sea level will affect maybe 15% of Pacific nations, that's the issue. I think I appreciate and understand and have sympathy for this gentleman and his family.
But he's got to go back.
That's what the courts have said. So let's deal to why it's uncomfortable for him going back.
This personally, Ione Tisiota is his name. Would you like to see that reviewed?
No, I think the courts have already weighed all the facts up and made a decision. Now we need to do a good job why it's difficult for him to go back.
All right, what are your thoughts on that? What do you think? At Backbenders TV, we're back right after the break.